Let me ask you a question. In just a few short seconds, do you really know how to effectively explain who you are as a professional? Imagine you're at the airport waiting for a flight. You end up chatting with the woman sitting next to you, a person you find interesting, a person you know could be a very valuable addition to your network. You quickly learn that she's an executive. You don't yet know if she could be a client, a connection that leads to a client, a future employer, or even a friend, but you do know that you sense a positive professional connection and you see possibilities. About the time you recognize this, she asks you what it is you do for a living. You're now faced with a really important moment. Until you effectively connect with this new person, you don't know the many ways your personal and professional lives might weave together. However, the potential benefits can't be realized if you don't make a good first impression. And a lot of that is about your personal elevator pitch. That's your very brief, informative, and somewhat compelling story of who you are as a professional. Unfortunately, since you have yet to seriously think about this issue, when you open your mouth to respond, not much comes out. You pause a bit because you're not sure where to start or how much to say. Then while you're stumbling to organize your thoughts, her flight's called and she's gone. You didn't really make a strong connection. She's not likely to remember you. But it doesn't have to be that way. The next time this happens, I want you to be ready to expertly deliver your personal elevator pitch. In this course, I want to teach you how to maximize your connection in a minimal amount of time. We often find ourselves engaging many small, unplanned encounters. If you find yourself with someone for a short period of time, just like sharing an elevator, how would you connect with them? The more comfortable you become with your elevator pitch, the more you will realize several benefits. First and foremost, you'll capitalize on the chance opportunities you have to meet people. Never again will you have to say to yourself, hey, I wonder how to contact that person, or did I even remember to tell them about where I work, or did I just mention the industry? You can learn how to casually let them know who you are and how to contact you. Next, periodically working on your pitch forces you to think about your professional identity, who you are and where you're going. It's often the case that we get so busy satisfying the short-term demands of our lives that we fail to stop and meaningfully reflect about where we're going. Your elevator pitch is one simple device that helps you think about the long term. Your pitch also represents an interesting opportunity to see how others respond to your goals. One part of your pitch, which we'll discuss in a moment, is a short statement about where you might be headed. When you're sharing some type of future goal, you're putting yourself out there. You're opening up the commentary, positive or critical, about how others view your aspirations. And that's terribly useful information as you continue to evaluate your career. Finally, being effective with your elevator pitch inevitably results in more professional opportunities. Simply stated, the more you make a solid, lasting connection with someone, the more they're going to think of you when they need someone with your skills and expertise. Success in your career has a lot to do with intelligence and your work ethic, but never underestimate the power of networking. In many ways, success really is about who you know as much as what you know. That's why, starting right now, you're going to perfect your elevator pitch and start making more productive connections. There are several different views out there about what constitutes a good personal elevator pitch. However, most agree that the basic structure is simple. You'll create a summary label, define where you've been professionally, where you are currently, and a little about where you're going. And you'll do all of this in 15 to 20 seconds. Think of this as a quality verbal extension of your business card. It provides much more information than a business card and much less information than your full resume. But to be honest with you, it's much more important than your resume. Your elevator pitch is a form of interpersonal communication that, when done correctly, acts like a catalyst that makes others want to know more about you. Only then do they care about your resume, website, blog, your LinkedIn page, and so on. Now, I don't want you to think of this as a sales pitch. Think of it as a quality introduction. Sure, we're always selling a little bit, but the goal with the pitch isn't simply selling. The goal is a lasting connection. Now, by connection, I really mean three things. You want to inform them, possibly help them, and find a way to relate to them. You see, the pitch is a great tool, but it needs to be viewed in a slightly larger context. the context of meeting someone, and trying to make a productive impression. So, of course, the first goal of a pitch is to inform them about who you are as a professional and a little about where you've been and where you're going. Next, I want you to seek to help the person. As you both share some sort of elevator pitch and get to know each other, look for opportunities to help them. Based on your conversation, you might think of a book, blog, or website that could be of use to them. Or maybe one of their comments makes you think of a person or professional organization that might be helpful. Beyond informing them about who you are, you're trying to add value when attempting to connect with someone. Finally, when making an initial connection, look for opportunities to relate to the person. Maybe you both love the same football team or enjoy playing golf. Maybe you both have teenage children and can relate to the challenges that presents. Or maybe you both simply worked for the same company at some point in the past. Finding one or two things that you both share makes you more relatable and memorable. Let me summarize the goal of using the pitch and trying to make a connection with someone. It's not about you trying to gain some benefit now. When you make a connection, you never know exactly when they'll be able to help you or you'll be able to help them. I like to think about it as planting seeds, but not knowing when the seeds will sprout and grow. So this effort isn't so much about any one particular seed. It's about planting as many seeds as possible. All right, we've talked about what a personal elevator pitch is, why it's so important, and a little about the context within which you use a pitch. Now let's consider a couple examples. Imagine I'm an IT professional and I'm sitting down to lunch with a friend when I realize that he's brought another friend, a person I don't know. After initial greetings, the new person looks at me and says, "So Todd, I understand you're in IT, is that right?" I might say, "That's right, I'm a developer. I write a lot of code. I started with Ernst & Young for a few years, but then jumped to one of my clients, Procter & Gamble. I've been working with them mostly in support of the brand development team for one of their packaged goods divisions. I love the work, but I've begun to think about the big picture, so I'm looking for opportunities to move into management roles." You'll notice I used a summary label and then a few short words to state my vocation, the industry I was in, the industry I'm currently in, the functional area I support, and a comment about my future aspirations, all in about 15 seconds. Let's consider another example. Say I spent several years working in supervisory roles in manufacturing companies, then took a break to go full-time for an MBA, and am now working as a manager over a manufacturing facility for an electronic components manufacturer. A friend invites me to a social event and at some point spots her boss, so she introduces us. The boss says, "Good to meet you, Todd. What is it you do?" One good response could be, "My background is manufacturing, mostly high-tech. Right now I'm the general manager of a large facility for Gentech. We're an electronic components company headquartered in Hong Kong. I love being in the shop environment, seeing things being created, but eventually hope to move into executive roles." Again, you'll notice a summary label to start, followed by information about the actual work experience, including the current employer and role, again with a small comment about the future, all in about 15 seconds. By the way, in this example, you'll notice I didn't mention my MBA degree. Generally speaking, you don't include education unless you're currently in graduate school or unless you're in your first year of professional work after undergrad. Otherwise, believe it or not, you risk sounding young and inexperienced. If your pitch is good and then the conversation develops, that's when other details such as education might come into play. Let's be clear, there is no perfect pitch. Having said that, a great pitch will have certain qualities. Make sure yours fits this description. First, it should be confident but not arrogant. You're trying to comfortably connect with someone, so it's about being a little relatable or maybe even interesting, but it's not about bragging. Next, it absolutely positively must be short. I've given you the goal of 15 to 20 seconds for a reason. When you meet someone for the first time, you'll lose them quickly if you start talking and let it go on and on and on. After about 15 or 20 seconds, most people start to tune out while thinking to themselves, "Wow, that person likes to talk a lot." Also, a great pitch tends to be more generic than specific. Now, normally when I talk about effective communication, I tell people to be very specific. But with a pitch, think about the context. You've just met this person, so you begin connecting with a useful general description of who you are. If you jump right in and mention specific technical lingo or other things the person is not likely to know, you'll lose them immediately. Last, strive to make your pitch distinctive, not generic. Now, by distinctive, I don't mean odd or off color. What I mean is try to offer them a combination of facts that not many people would be able to offer. When you mention your past work, an industry or two, your title, and something about your future, try to ensure that this group of facts is unique to you. The more distinct your description, the more memorable you'll be. If you follow the structure and the characteristics we just discussed, your pitch is going to be the beginning of a great conversation. Let's return for just a moment to the fact that the pitch is just a tool, and we have to see it in the context of an initial meeting and an attempt to connect with another person. We already talked about the need to try and be genuinely helpful and not just make a sales pitch. When I think about first meeting someone, a few additional things pop into mind that will definitely help you make a solid connection. The first is to always follow your pitch with a question about their work. For better or for worse, people typically enjoy talking about themselves more than listening to you talk about yourself, so give them that chance. In addition, the more they share about what they do, the more you'll learn about things you might be able to relate to, again, providing more of an opportunity to connect. Next, never ask for something when you first meet someone. There might be exceptions, but generally, you don't want to ask a stranger for something you've not earned. Don't ask if they can connect you with someone, and don't ask if they're hiring. Most professionals will be put off by having a stranger immediately ask for something. The goal is to connect and relate, happily unaware of exactly how you two might benefit one another in the future. Also, don't forget this classic, know your audience. I've given you a good first pass at creating a personal elevator pitch, but there are variations worth considering. For example, is the person in your industry, or do they share the same vocation? Think about it. If an engineer, an accountant, and an IT professional all meet for the first time at a social event, none of them should be using specific jargon the others won't understand. Similarly, if you're communicating with an executive, you'll want to be particularly concise, maybe only a 10-second pitch. If you're talking to a salesperson, consider shaping what you say to relate to their world. Every audience is different, so think just a little about how you might speak in a way that allows them to hear you. Finally, if the pitch and the initial connection feel productive, be proactive to ensure a lasting connection. This might be as simple as handing them one of your business cards and saying, "It's great to meet you, John. It was nice chatting with you." By the way, it's not best to ask them for their card. If you offer yours, that's their prompt to offer you theirs. If the interaction feels particularly comfortable, you might go further and tell them you're on LinkedIn and will reach out to connect online. That's about it. If you'll grab a trusted friend or colleague and practice just a little, then revisit your pitch for a few minutes every 12 to 18 months, well, then the next time you meet someone interesting, you'll not only be ready to talk about who you are, you'll be ready to make a strong first impression, a great connection.